Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Fantasy Six Pack to talk about Sunday Night Football. The Detroit Lions head all the way to Houston, Texas to battle CJ Stroud and the Texans. Kickoff is at 8:20 p.m. and boy oh boy is this going to be a fantastic game. I've noticed a lot of the single game slates I start the video off with boy oh boy this, boy oh boy that, and at the time I really mean it, and I would never tell you anything that I don't believe in. I'm not a dishonest man when it comes to DFS and sports betting purposes. So let's talk about this game. As I said, kickoff 8:20 p.m. The NFC North versus the AFC South. Both teams are in first place in their respective divisions. The Detroit Lions 7-1. The Houston Texans are 6-3. Before I get into the game, make sure you get to the website at Fantasy Six Pack on Twitter, or if you want to type it in, fantasysixpack.net. When you get there, look around, see what works for you. There's rankings, projections, IDP content, DFS stuff from me, Keith, David, and a whole other slew of folks. And it's the you're going to want in on the Discord. As I was saying on the Sunday morning social, I'll just have an idea, right? As we all do. I'll write it down on a piece of paper, as I do on a sticky note, and I'll just screenshot it and share it in the Discord, in the DFS channel, or the sports betting channels for the heck of it, because that's where it deserves to be. I'm not the end-all be-all of anything, but I work for Fantasy Six Pack. They employ me and they pay me to give my thoughts and advice on all my sports betting stuff. So make sure you get there, sign up. The Discord is free, but there are some premium channels and options. When you get there, tag me or just tell Joe or Keith that Beastie sent you, and maybe they'll take care of you. Who knows? T-shirt, I don't want to say anything. T-shirt, socks, whatever you're into, or IDP stuff, DFS, as I've said. When we look at this game, let's get back to this sucker. The Lions head to Houston. Kickoff is at 8:20 p.m. It's going to be a fantastically fun game. As I said, the Lions are 7-1. They've won their last 6 games in a row. Houston 6-3, doing well. The expectations for both of these teams and franchises headed into the season were sky high, and so far so good for both of these teams. Let's start with Jared Goff, shall we? We've seen all the memes, all the photos, all the gifs, all the national media talking about giving Goff his due, and rightfully so, given what he's done leading up to this point. Again, it's week 10. There no division title has been won. The Super Bowl hasn't been won. The playoffs haven't even started. But it's kind of, so far, it's what you see is what you get. You know that old saying? Oh, I think it was Oprah said this. Must have been Oprah, because my mom tossed it back in my face a few times. When people show you who they truly are, believe them. Jared Goff is showing us who he is, so why wouldn't we believe him? Right now, 21 to 22 completions tonight, around 210 yards and 2 touchdown passes. The beautiful thing here about Goff is there's been games where he hasn't even broken 100 passing yards, but the Lions have still scored 30 or 40 points. Get this, over the last 4 games, the Lions have averaged 43 points a game. It's a whopper of an average. Overall, I believe Detroit's averaging 33.4. So the last 4 games alone, they've averaged 10 more points than their actual average. Average this, average that, decimal point here, and we're rolling. When we look at CJ Stroud versus the Lions at home, he is 13 grand on FanDuel, 9-8 on DraftKings. CJ Stroud is an absolute monster at home. Look at this. He's averaged, I believe, I write it so tiny. When will I learn? CJ Stroud has averaged 308.9 yards a game at home in his career, and his touchdown to interception ratio is at 22 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions in the last 12 games he's played at home. So CJ Stroud at home warrants our attention. 22 to 23 completions, 250 yards, at least 1 touchdown pass, and he'll take off 3 or 4 times for around 15 to 20 yards. Everything points to CJ Stroud being the better play tonight from the quarterback position because of what he can do with his arm and his legs. Sure, does Jared Goff get the Lions over the hump to win games? Absolutely, but we're not after who wins the game. We're after points and touchdowns and all that, and I think CJ Stroud could be that option at quarterback tonight. When we look at the running backs, And I'll say this, the running back matchups are tough based on the opposing DST. Will that stop Jahmyr Gibbs? Will that stop Demont or Joe Mixon? Probably not, but I just want to add this little nugget in there now. The way to attack this game is with the Lions and Texans wide receivers, seeing how Houston's 27th overall against opposing wide receivers, seeing how the Lions are 30th overall against opposing wide receivers, but we'll get there. I'm just so excited to give you this video that I'm like a little boy on Christmas morning, and rightfully so. Shouldn't we all feel this way about a primetime football game or just a football game in general? Let's start with the running backs, and we'll go with Joe Mixon first. The Lions 6th overall against opposing running backs. They're tough against RBs, and it looks like the Lions' new addition, Zadarius Smith, will not play tonight, and it's not because he's hurt or he's not up to speed that quick. Everything I've heard, and I believe it, this is the Cleveland Browns bye week. He's traded during the Browns bye week, so Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they're honoring that decision. And you might like it, you might hate it, but it makes sense, and that's no more or no less. That's it, is what it is. Joe Mixon, 19 carries, 90 yards, a touchdown on the ground, and you're looking at 2 to 3 receptions for another 20 yards. If you're going to play the single game slate tonight, which I hope you will, if you're going to consume this video, Joe Mixon is an absolute must. MVP captain spot or in the flex spot. No matter which way you slice it, Joe Mixon needs to be in our lineups. When we look at Gibbs or Demont, I think both of the Lions boys deserve to be played tonight in unison. MVP captain and vice versa flex. So right now, Gibbs, Demont, and Mixon, you could just run it down the list. You just start at Gibbs, MVP captain, Demont, Mixon, flex. Demont, captain, and the other two, you get what I'm saying here. But when we look at Jahmyr Gibbs, Houston's 4th overall against opposing running backs. But when you look at Houston, they're 27th, as I said, against wide receivers. Gibbs does both, right? He can catch the ball. You can give him the rock, and he'll go 70 yards at 25 miles an hour. Couldn't even keep up with a pedal bicycle in an odd way. 15 carries, around 70 yards on the ground, and a touchdown for Gibbs, in addition to 3 to 4 catches for another 20 to 25 yards. So we're going to be dangerously close to 100 all-purpose yards for Gibbs. When we look at Demont, Yesirski, never liked that term, but he says it all the time, so okay, I'll roll with it. When you look at Demont, 14 to 15 carries, 70 yards as well, a touchdown on the ground as well, and only 1 to 2 catches for around 10 to 15 yards. So Gibbs, Demont, Mixon, all 3 score a touchdown. Get that in some sort of parlay, and we'll move on. We'll roll from there. Coming up on 8 minutes into the video, we'll talk about wide receivers, give you some recent betting trends, and we'll get the heck out of here to enjoy our Sunday and Sunday night football. When you look at the Lions wide receivers, Monra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond, those are the 3 wide receivers I have my eye on tonight. Tim Patrick is okay, but it's too risky. At least we know Khalif Raymond returns punts, returns kicks. He's a trusted member and trusted veteran of this Lions team. Monra St. Brown in Houston, they're 27th overall, as I've said about 5 times already, looking at 9 to 10 targets, 6 to 7 catches, around 70 yards. And on a positive note, if you're a Lions fan, as I am, as you can see the Lions, foam finger here, obviously, trying not to show homerism or bias. I see it, I call it as I see it, and we'll go from there. So if I may indulge in my Lions fandom for just a moment or two, Houston just gave up 3 touchdowns combined to Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson last week. So I wouldn't say the Houston Texans defense is reeling, but we can only build on what we know. And as of right now, Houston Texans gave up 3 touchdowns. How do Amon-Ra and J-Mo fare in this one? And when you look at Jamison Williams, 10 grand on FanDuel, little high for, I got him for 4 or 5 targets, 2 to 3 receptions, around 40 yards, and a big red question mark. One of his receptions could be 40 yards. Don't know what we're going to get from J-Mo fresh off his 2-game suspension. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't like it, but I don't want to be the old man, get off my lawn kind of deal. J-Mo's a kid. He's got some growing up to do, and this is the perfect organization, or is a perfect coach in GM and ownership trio I've ever seen as a Lions fan, so they should get him on the right track. What's his name? Dan Campbell already said he supports him. He wants that JMO is someone that you want in your corner if you're going to go to war or play a football game. So JMO in a carry or two, maybe some weird reverse or something for around 8 to 10 yards. Khalif Raymond, nothing crazy. That he's just our dart throw in the flex spot. When we look at the Houston Texans wide receivers, it looks like they're getting Nico Collins back. He's already been activated. Is he going to be active? Him and Tank Dell are both game time decisions, and I would suspect that both of them play tonight, and rightfully so given the matchup. The Lions 30th overall against opposing wide receivers, and when you look at the Detroit Lions defense, they're allowing 209 yards a game to opposing wide receivers, which is it's both good and bad. I would say it's probably in the middle, so you could call the Detroit Lions, pass defense and secondaries middling. But when you got Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph back there, those two guys aren't middling. So the Lions have to find a happy medium in their secondary. But until then, Nico and Tank full sends in DFS formats tonight. When you look at Nico, 7 to 8 targets, 6 to 7 catches, 80 to 95 yards, 85 to 90 yards. 95 is fine. That was just a big jump. I said 80 or 150 yards, or the in between. It was very drastic, if I might say that. Tank Dell, 6-7 targets, 4 to 5 receptions, or 60 yards. And again, Tank Dell, just like I said about JMO, one of Tank's receptions could be 30 or 40 yards, and boom, there goes his projection on one reception. Robert Woods, John Mechie III, just fillers, right? I said Khalif Raymond is a dart, so is Woods or John Mechie III, based on if Nico plays or if Tank Dell plays. We'll move on from there. When we look at the tight ends, Sam Laporta, Dalton Schultz, I would prefer Dalton Schultz given the workload or the targets that he's going to see. When you look at Sam Laporta, he has 2 or less receptions in 5 of their last 8 games this season. He's scored twice, but there is no baked-in workload or baked-in projection with Sam Laporta. Kind of it starts to be, let's call it gadgety, let's say, a flea flicker, and he barely, like a fingertip catch against Dallas, and he's gone. Can't project that every game. So I would prefer Dalton Schultz, 5 to 6 targets, 3 to 4 receptions, and 40 yards. But the Lions, 2nd overall in defending opposing tight ends this year, and they've only given up 244 yards to opposing tight ends all season. 9 weeks of the year, actually 8. They already had their bye week, so 244 receiving yards for tight ends is a little grim, but Dalton Schultz can get it done. And again, what's the health of Nico and Tank going to be? I wouldn't imagine that their head coach they're going to put Nico or Tank in the lineup if they're 50%, 60, 70%. Football players can't play half-ass. If you're active, you got to be on the field and you got to be moving, at full speed. And I trust Houston's coach. I trust CJ Stroud. So Nico and Tank are active. As I said, they're full send. Jake Bates, Kaimi Fairbairn, whichever way you want to go. I have Jake Bates, 3 for 3 XPs, 2 for 2 field goals. Kaimi, 2 for 2 XPs, 2 for 2 field goals. When we look at the DSTs here, the Lions or the Texans, we know what we're going to get to a certain extent, right? The Lions, their DST against, certain position groups may be, low or green, however you want to say it, but they have a propensity to get turnovers, to create turnovers, whether it's interceptions, whether the interceptions are returned for touchdowns. And without Aiden Hutchinson, it hurts, it stings, but they can still get after the quarterback. So the Lions, 3 to 4 sacks and interception, but I have them giving up around 360 total yards, which is tough, but hey, we move on. The Texans, 2 to 3 sacks. And as it stands right now, the Lions offense, they're not making any mistakes. It's a strange thing. Golf is not throwing interceptions, and I cringe just saying that because in my lifetime I've learned not to bet on the Lions. Don't talk in hypotheticals or absolutes when it comes to the Lions, because I'm going to get bent over as sure as the sun will rise in the morning. So, but in a way, I don't want to say this video is a one-off, but it is a gig of mine to give you what I think for a single game slate. So I think the Lions win this one 28-14. Might be a little light in terms of the Houston Texans side of things. So if you want to get nuts, call it 28-21. the Lions will win this game. Detroit averaging 33.4 points a game, which I've told you. Houston averaging 22.3 points a game. And the Houston offense is outgaining the Lions overall. They gain around 390 yards a game. Lions 380 yards a game. And get this, the Detroit DST is only allowing 19 points a game, where the Houston defense is allowing 22.2 points a game. Lions win this one 28-14 in a somewhat exciting football game. While the final score isn't indicative of that, I've been known to be wrong a lot, over and over again, multiple times a day. So give me the Lions to win 28-14. Two recent betting trends I think are good for this spot. The over has hit in 4 of Detroit's last 5. The over has hit in 7 of Houston's last 8 games. Be good, be safe. Thank you for reading Bottom of the Barrel. Thank you for being with us at Fantasy Six Pack for all the festivities on Sunday. And let's get together the same time tomorrow to talk about Monday Night Football. If I'm not mistaken, let me flip my pages. The Miami Dolphins are at the Rams. Beautiful game. Lions win 28-14. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.